Good evening, Who Dat Nation, and happy Wednesday to our Bayou Blitz family. I hope everybody is doing well out there. I love to report the fact that summer seems to be hanging on until the bitter end. So between summer weather and real football about to begin, that's why I have this big old smile on my face. Anybody that follows me knows that smile quickly turns to a frown on game day, but enjoy it while you can.
You said it,
I
not
am
me.
right. I am Bob Rose. I am one of your co-hosts to your Bayou Blitz podcast, and I can't speak for my co-host, but I am happy to report that I am not starting the NFL season on the suspended list. How about you, my good friend and my co-host, Brendan Boylan?
Yeah. I'm not on a suspended list. I'm back on the world tour list, but we'll get to that next week. Also, I don't know if it's my lighting, but I look super pale compared to you. So maybe it is good that I'm going to the beach this weekend. Um, no, I mean everything's okay. Real football's around the corner. That's a huge plus, huge positive. You and I had just got out of a meeting with Pro Football Focus or not Pro Football Focus.
Ooh,
Wow,
careful.
sports fans. I got too many things going on in my head. But PSF, we had a good meeting with about what we're going to be doing with them, just kind of moving forward. And happy to report we got some fun stuff in the works for you guys as the season continues. And shoot, Bob, before you know it, you'll be here in Charlotte. So we got
Yeah.
a lot of good things up on our radar. But yeah, let's talk about the suspended New Orleans Saint and Jake Haener. Bob, the Saints are known for hitting you with a wow, I didn't see that coming. The week of really the opening week of every year, right? The
Yeah.
week leading up, there seems to always be some news that just kind of leaks out when you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming. And 9 times out of 10, it's really not a big deal. And in this case, I don't really think it's that big of a deal because it's not a player that was going to make an immediate impact on winning right now. They're really high on the kid. They like what they saw.
Mhm.
Some people did not in the preseason, but the Saints seem to like this kid, especially quarterback. If you had to pick like one position, it was like especially quarterback. If they really like you, you should probably stay in their good graces.
Mhm.
Getting handed a 6-game suspension for performance-enhancing drugs, not a good way to stay in the good graces with the team. I'm seeing people in the comments, what was Jake Haener thinking? He had to learn. Being a pro is a lot different than college. Yes. Can I play devil's advocate, Bob? Because this is a game you and I are very good at.
You're the advocate. I'm the devil. Is that the way it works?
I was going to say, we're going to keep our normal rules. So the one thing I've learned about PED suspensions over the years of covering the Saints and just the NFL in general is there are a lot of things that get added to that list every year
Mhm.
that can be found in common medication,
Mhm.
right? If I'm not mistaken, like Kenny Vaccaro maybe was one of those
Yeah.
who got suspended for 2 or 3 games because it was like an ADHD or ADD medicine that he was on that later, got added to the list. So yes, that could very well be the case. On the same hand or the same coin though, you have doctors and nutritionists and like the best in the world in that department in front of you every day. And it is your job to communicate to them what you take every
Mhm.
single day: food, vitamins, medication for different things. That is your job as a pro athlete to go, hey doc, I just want to let you know I just got prescribed this.
Yeah.
Before I fill my prescription, is there any ingredients in this that could get me in trouble? And then that's how that process should go. So I'll play that part and say maybe it was something he was taking already prescribed,
Mhm.
and in this process of becoming a collegiate athlete or an amateur athlete to now a professional athlete, maybe it just got lost in the translation. However, that's not always the case when it comes to PEDs.
No, no, it isn't. But I see your point, and I agree with it. Some of you know my athletic history. Brendan and I were privileged to have my volleyball doubles partner Jason Halpern on, one of our shows, last season when we were preparing for the Raiders Saints game. And at Jason, I played pro am volleyball at a very high level, and I will say this: when we were preparing to try to qualify for for the 1996 Olympic trials, we got every athlete, every prospective Olympic qualifier, got a list ahead of time on the banned substances by the IOC, and I kid you not, it was in the double digits of pages typed. So I mean, you guys know what how much you can fit, how many typed words you can fit on a page, and they aren't listed things like Robitussin cough syrup, Afrin nasal spray. They are listed by ingredient, and I mean, the ingredients, I needed bifocals back then, to read it all. And I'll give you an example. I use Afrin nasal spray, because of my allergies. Afrin nasal spray will show up on a drug test as a steroid. And I mean, look at me. Do I look like I take steroids? That's just one example. So on that hand, it is very easy, to inadvertently slip up. I mean, there's your cheaters, out there, that sticking the needle in their arms and taking supplements that they know damn well, that they're not allowed to take, that fall under the performance, the legitimate performance enhancing category. But also, when you're a legitimate professional athlete, you have a team of personal trainers more often than not. If you're playing for a professional sports team, that team most certainly has a team of trainers. So it is Jake Hayner's responsibility to vet whatever he takes through either his training staff or his team's training staff, or both. So, for that, I fault him. And the fact that this is a 6-game suspension, that's rather harsh for a rookie, which makes me think, and this part's just my hunch, it makes me think that he might have gotten zapped for something in college, which wouldn't necessarily be public knowledge, or at the combine, where it does fall under the NFL first offender policy, but isn't necessarily released. Because a 6-game suspension is something you usually see for a second offender, under the PED policy. Now, again, that part's just a hunch on my part, and it's also concerning. It's not concerning from the Saints schematically right now, because if Jake Haener takes a meaningful snap in 2023, that means something went heinously wrong during the course of the year. It's a long-term concern for me, because his next suspension for something like this is at minimum 10 or 12 games, if not the season. So, you're talking a real set of problems, down the road if he doesn't mind his P's and Q's.
I was going to say, and I'm glad you brought up the length of the suspension at 6 games. For my devil's advocate theory, maybe he was taking something he didn't know. If that was the case, I believe you're more likely to see like a 2 or 3 game suspension. If it's something that's commonly found in allergy medicine or ADHD medicine or what have you, to get hit with a 6-game suspension, to me, it sounds like it's some sort of performance enhancing drug where there's not a question that it's a performance enhancing drug.
That too.
You were talking about pre-Olympic qualifiers. I know that there are certain sports where you cannot ingest a certain amount of milligrams of caffeine.
Yes.
So if you have like 2 or 3 cups of coffee, you're kind of screwed. Well, I mean, you're not going to get 6 games for drinking an extra cup of coffee, right?
Right.
So this definitely sounds like he was taking something that he knew he shouldn't have. However, until something comes out, which we may never know. A lot of times we only find out if the player makes a public statement or an Instagram post or a Twitter post saying, hey, I was taking nasal spray and this is what happened. It's my, essentially saying it's my fault. I should have known, blah, 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 blah. But I just want to clear it up for the fans. We've heard that kind of narrative and story go before. Unfortunate news for the Saints. Means Taysom Hill's back at quarterback 3. Does that really affect anything? Not necessarily. Are the Saints going to go and sign another quarterback? No, they will not. So let's go ahead and get those questions off the table. No quarterbacks are going to be worked out, I don't think. And really, there's not like there's an open spot on the practice squad to bring someone on if you wanted to. Even thinking about former backups over the last couple years, like, are the Saints really going to go call Blake Bortles? I don't even know if Blake Bortles is on a roster. I'm not going to lie to you, but like I don't see the.
I doubt it.
I don't see the Saints going, hey, Blake, you want to come on the practice squad for 6 games, and just in case we need you, we'll bump you up because of the new rule when it comes to not, to a third quarterback. I mean, I don't see the Saints doing it.
No,
they could. What is it, Jake Luton? I don't think he stayed on the Panthers roster. Like, there's guys like that. If the Saints felt like they absolutely needed it, they could, but I don't see that happening. But enough about Jake Haener, enough about PEDs and suspensions. We have football to talk about. Legitimate football to talk about. So, Bob, I kind of want to start very broad and work our way in as we talk about week 1. Obviously, there's excitement, right? That's how every season should start. I think there's an extra boost of excitement amongst the Houdat Nation simply because, at least on paper, this should be a much better team than what we've seen over the last 2 years. There's an excitement because the Saints are the favorites to win the NFC South yet again after, having that throne kind of ripped away from them recently. There is an excitement because you can finally start seeing some young guys that are showing promise in the superstardom, which we really haven't seen since 2017 in that incredible draft class. And I'm talking about the Chris Olaves of the world. I'm talking about the Alante Taylors of the world. I know Adebo had a bad year last year, but I'm talking about the Paulson Adebos of the world. Peyton Turner looks like he's turning a corner. There's excitement for youth for the first time, despite the Saints having the oldest roster in the league. Which doesn't sound like that should make sense, but in this scenario, it does. So for you, Bob, we'll start broad. If there's one thing you're extremely excited about going into week 1, one player, one situation, one matchup, what is it?
Defensive tackles for the Saints. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Right as I put you on full screen, too.
All that talk about nasal spray. Roger Goodell's going to be knocking on my door at any minute. For me, it's the defensive tackles. And I say that for a couple. There's a lot of players that I'm excited to see, starting with Derek Carr, of course. A lot of positions that I'm excited to see, but the Saints defensive tackles it's a completely rebuilt unit from the position that we saw a year ago, and they had to do it. Because that was the major struggle for their plummet in the rankings against the run. That was a major issue in the pass rush. The fact that they weren't able to generate any consistent interior pass rush for really the last 2 years. So they went out, they prioritized signing Colin Saunders and Nate Shepard early in free agency, and then they spent a first-round draft choice on Clemson defensive tackle Brian Brzee. That unit is going to be tested right out of the gate against, you could argue, that the Tennessee Titans are the most physical rushing team in the National Football League. It's a short list. Them, the Baltimore Ravens, San Francisco 49ers come to mind. And the Tennessee Titans' offensive success is based off whether they can run the ball or not. They make no secret. They need to run the ball down your throat, and they make no secret of that. In Derrick Henry, you're talking the preeminent power rusher, in the NFL. It's going to be a big test for those Saints defensive tackles, and I'm including Malcolm Roach, who, by the way, also had an outstanding training camp. These guys are going to be put to the test right off the bat, because if Tennessee can't run the ball, Ryan Tannehill is not typically a quarterback that's going to beat you by dropping back 35 and 40 times a game. So, if the Saints could stop Derrick Henry, and Tajay Spears, a terrific compliment to Henry, if the Saints could stop that run, that's a big advantage for New Orleans. And your eyes are going to be on the individual matchups, in that category too, particularly Demario Davis, Pete Werner, Cam Jordan's still an outstanding run defender too, but it starts with these defensive tackles. And not only against the run, you want to get interior pressure on Tannehill too. Pressure him into some mistakes, perhaps some interceptions, a low completion percentage. For this particular game, the defensive tackle spot is the area I'm most excited for.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree with you, especially with the type of quarterback Ryan Tannehill is, right? He got his payday, right? He showed what he can mean to a football team as a game-managing quarterback. Very similar to Alex Smith in his heyday.
Yeah.
Is a guy that isn't going to necessarily lose you games, but he's not going to do anything that's going to necessarily win you a football game either. And Tannehill's at that stage of his career. I mean, that's why the Titans have drafted quarterbacks the last 2 years, and Will Levis this past draft, and of course the year before they go and get Malik Willis, and that was an awkward situation as well, with the reports coming out that maybe Willis is going to get straight out cut, and then Levis isn't living up to expectations, and then in my head I'm thinking, as someone who does not cover this team whatsoever, has no inside sources over there, maybe the expectations are just really high over there for young quarterbacks. If you're already talking about giving up on Malik and then complaining about how Will Levis is adjusted throughout training camp as well. I digress. The Titans are an interesting team because on paper, the Titans every year, especially because of the Derrick Henry show, should compete for their division in the AFC South. However, they've also proven to be a team where they are one injury away from being one of the worst teams in football. And the injury is usually to Derrick Henry, who has literally shouldered the offense for a couple years now. Here's my thing when it comes to the matchup, the thing that I'm looking forward to the most. It has nothing to do with what you talked about in the Tennessee Titans and their run attack. It has nothing to do with the New Orleans Saints and their strong defense and trying to, I don't want to say reimagine, maybe reinvent themselves would be a good word, on the interior of the defensive line with these new additions. I'm going to flip it to the other side. Offense. It's going to be the most generic answer of all time, but I'm really excited to see Derek Carr build chemistry with this offense. And it's not just Derek Carr that has chemistry to build. It's Jamal Williams who has chemistry to build. It is Jimmy Graham who's having to reacclimate himself, even if it's only for 15 to 20 snaps a week, to the Saints offense. There are so many pieces to this puzzle that were not on the table last year.
Yeah.
Last year, Saints offensively, it seemed like 3 different puzzle boxes were just dumped onto a table and it was like, hey, figure it out. So where this year it's more like, okay, we have the single box, right? 500-piece puzzle. All the pieces are there, and now week 1 is the first week to start kind of piecing this all together. But the pieces are there, to where last year either the pieces fell off the table, the dog ate a couple. You and I both have young pups, so we know exactly what that's like, just magically losing things. Or, it just got mixed up with the other 7 puzzles that were on the table. So this year is definitely one where It seems like everything's in place, but and I make this analogy a lot. This isn't Madden, right? This is you can have a Madden team that looks great on paper, but we have to see it. We have to see it, and I'm just excited, because it's also a challenge for Pete Carmichael if he's going to be the one calling plays this year yet again, or Curry or whoever ends up calling the plays. It's going to be a challenge because you don't have Alvin Kamara. It's going to be a challenge because how cautious are you on a snap count with Mike Thomas? There's a lot of things that also factor in that. You have a new running back, Kendre Miller. Like, is he a guy at this point where you can trust to give the ball to 10 times a game?
If he
been
plays.
banged up. Yeah, I was gonna say he's been banged up. So, who's your 2 running back? Like, there's a lot of things going on. So it's gonna be a challenge. How do the Saints step up to that initial challenge? And can Derek Carr go and prove week 1, hey, I am worth all the money that you spent to bring me here, and I am going to be a quarterback that can win you football games for the foreseeable future. Those are the things I'm looking forward to in week 1.
Yeah, and neither one of us have mentioned the offensive line, the Saints' offensive line. Are they going to be able to stand up against the Tennessee 34 front? That frankly has some intriguing pass rushers. Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry, Harold Landry coming back from a season-ending injury a year ago. Arden Key, from LSU. This is a Tennessee team that can really pressure opposing backfields. And is that Saints offensive line, who I have described, the starting 5 as potentially top tier, are they going to be able to show that? Are they going to be able to stay healthy? Because I've also described the Saints backups, and I'm talking even at number 6 and beyond as putrid, pathetic, abysmal. I could go on, but we're a PG-13 show here. All right, PG-13-ish.
It depends on the day, depends on the situation, depends what we're talking about.
Right. In addition to establishing chemistry between Carr and his receivers, Jamal Williams and the system, it has to start up front in the trenches with that New Orleans offensive line. They got to protect Carr so he can go through his progressions. They got to open up holes for Williams and whoever the hell the number 2 back is going to be. So they're going to be under the gun too.
Yeah. And I see a comment Gumbo just threw out there, with all the changes offensively, should the expectation levels be low? No, I don't think so. I think that when you have the offseason that the Saints had and bringing in Derek Carr and then making a move for Jamal Williams that really not a lot of people, if anybody, saw coming, the Saints going and grabbing a guy who led the league in rushing touchdowns from a season ago, adding Michael Thomas back to the lineup. All the reports out of camp that Chris Olave is a guy that you need to buy stock in now. I don't think you can allow yourself to have low expectations for the offense. Is that fair to the offense? No. I'm not saying you have to have sky-high expectations for the offense. I'm not saying you have to go back to the prime Drew Brees years and go, this is what I expect. But I also don't think it would be fair to go, you know what? I expect this offense to be, similar to what we got at the end of last year for the first couple weeks of the season. Because if that's the case, there's a lot of concern.
Yeah.
This is a team that I fully expect from week 1 to average 24 or more a game. I don't think that's outrageous. I don't think that's ridiculous, but that should be the goal, is for this offense to average a little over 3 touchdowns a game. And is that a high expectation on my mark? Yeah, kind of. Is it outrageous? No. But that's my expectation when you go and you bring in the type of caliber guys that you have, especially at the quarterback spot, because I don't know if you can name another team in the league that got a bigger upgrade at quarterback this year than New Orleans.
As far as veteran additions, no. And obviously the jury is still out on the high rookie picks. but they're going to come in with high expectations. Yeah, who asked that question? Was it Jimmy Gumbo?
Jimmy, yep.
Okay. Jimmy, I don't know about low expectations, but I think I'll go the opposite end of Brendan a little bit. I don't have low expectations because I expect this to be a top 10 offensive unit based on, health permitting, of course, based off of the additions that they made, this offseason. But to start the year, I think we should temper our expectations a little bit, because we don't see the starters get a lot of reps, not just in the preseason games, but in training camp either. It will probably take them a couple of weeks to get up to full game speed for an entire 4-quarter game. That's why people that are expecting the Saints to score for this game to be in the 30s. I don't know that I see that. You're going against a pretty underrated and a very physical Tennessee defense and a Titans team that likes to play a game at a snail's pace. They like to play a slower paced game. That combined with the fact, that you do have so many pieces and you're missing your best one, the most versatile chess piece on the board, in Alvin Kamara. So I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, Brendan. I think this team should be a top 10 offense, but in the first 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to see some growing pains and some speed bumps. There's no doubt in my mind about that one.
Absolutely. I think the Saints have an interesting first 2 games of the season, particularly. And with that, I mean, you get Tennessee, who is almost an extinct, and you kind of alluded to it. Their type of play style is almost extinct in the NFL. The only other team that I can think of that would be similar, but they do it in a little bit of a different fashion, is Baltimore.
Yeah.
We're going to pound the ball. We're going to run it down your throat. We're going to play good defense, and we're going to squeak out some 21-20 victories all season long. And I say Baltimore is a close comparison because Lamar Jackson is so dynamic as a player, not that Derrick Henry is not, but Derrick Henry's very literally a guy that is just going to run you over. Lamar Jackson's a guy who can do a lot more when healthy and when Baltimore gives him receivers to throw to. With all that said, the Saints get that week 1. It's going to be very physical. I think DJ said it somewhere in the comments a little earlier. It's going to be won and lost in the trenches. Absolutely. This is going to be a game that's won and lost there. I don't expect the Saints to blow them out by any means, but I do expect this team to put up 24 points at least. I'm not saying it's going to get into the 30s, but I could see this be a game that's like 21-24. When it comes to week 2, and I don't want to look too far ahead, the Saints don't really know what they're playing in week 2 because I don't think the Panthers know what they're doing in week 1, let alone week 2. And you're playing a team that is so different in the sense of they're still figuring themselves out, where Tennessee is a team that has an identity, has stuck to that identity, and a couple years ago was very successful with that identity, and has had some good years. I think that's fun, though, for a Saints team that, much like Carolina, is going to have to figure out who they are, at least offensively. It's almost like a 50-50 split. Defensively, the identity's there. We've seen it. We've seen the successful game plan. The Saints are going to do something very similar. Offensively, the blueprint is there that was laid by Sean and Drew over the last however many years. It's not going to be exactly that, but there's going to be some sprinkles of DNA in that offense, but it's going to take time. And it's going to take time for Derek Carr to go, hey, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. We're going to do this here. I'm going to make this check here. So week 1 is going to be fun because you have a team that is truly knows who they are on both sides of the ball, and the Saints truly know who they are on one side of the ball. That's going to be the magic part of week 1.
Brendan, what's an X factor coming into this game, either matchup wise or player wise, that you don't think enough people are talking about, that you see could be a big factor in whether the Saints win or lose this game?
Yeah, it's fun because it's like you remember that was my article every week
That's why I
for
went
like
there.
3 years. I get to write the article without writing the article. That's fun. I'll give you 3, just like I used to back when I wrote. The first one, and maybe not the most important, and certainly one that people are aware of because it made a lot of news lately. Rookie special teamers for New Orleans. I think it gets overlooked how valuable 3 points are until the kicker misses. Right? They're one of those guys where it's like, until they miss, you don't realize how valuable 3 points are. Yeah, I think Blake and Lou got a lot. I don't want to say hanging on this game. I don't want to be that over dramatic. But man, you got to prove right out the gate, like if you're Blake, right? You beat a guy who was a Pro Bowl kicker, one of the more consistent kickers of the last, I don't know how many years you want to say. I want to say maybe the last 5 years. He's been one of the most consistent, if not the most consistent, outside of Justin Tucker. Man, you got to prove to the fan base. You got to prove to the coaching staff that they made the right choice. If you're Lou, great story.
Yeah.
I mean, that's stories that you just live for, right? Like that is a heck of a story. He gets a shout out from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I mean, the dude looks like a guy that I'd create in a video game, just like tatted up. I want the tatted up rock star punter, and that's what he is. But man, he beat a guy in Blake Gillikin who was thought of as one of the best young punters in the league. If you muff a punt week 1, you know what I'm saying? So that is definitely one of the X factors for me is, can these guys prove that they deserve to win the jobs that they did? X factor 2, I'm cheating because you already talked about it, but it's the interior of the defensive line against Derrick Henry. And I think even without you saying all the great factual information that you did earlier, this is what it breaks down to. Derrick Henry is the most aggressive and powerful runner that I have seen in the NFL in a very long time. And honestly, I like to bring this up every week. I'm younger than Bob. So for me to say just a little bit, just a wee bit, even just thinking like tape and NFL films, like Earl Campbell used to run like that. Bo Jackson used to run like that. You don't have guys run the ball like that anymore. And I've always been hard on Derrick Henry in fantasy football. If you guys have ever read my fantasy pieces, I've always been do not draft Derrick Henry in the first however many rounds because he's going to get hurt, just like I used to do with Ezekiel Elliott. Not because the run styles were similar, but because of how many touches they'd get every year. Same with Christian McCaffrey. How many touches are you going to get every year? But this is week 1. He's fresh, right? And he's a beast. Against the Saints defensive line that is brand new. That interior defensive line, brand new together. Each one of those pieces brings something unique. Each one of those pieces brings some sort of level of pedigree that's different than the next, whether it's championship level pedigree, whether it's veteran NFL experience, or whether it's a guy who was, the number 1 high school prospect just a few years ago. But they got to prove it.
Yeah.
The Saints did something that doesn't happen a whole lot with teams that. How many times do we hear this team's a piece away from competing, right? I think the Saints over the last 2 years were a piece or 2 away from being a competitive team in the NFC playoffs. Well, very rarely does a team like that go, you know what? And you might be laughing. Some of you guys might be laughing. What do you mean, Brendan? They had losing records, but just hear me out. Very rarely does a team that is that close to winning their division, that's a better way to say it, go, I'm going to strip an entire unit. Like, I'm just going to pink slip an entire unit. And that's what the Saints did. And so the Saints have a lot riding on these guys. These guys have a lot riding on them. And think about the 2 free agents that they signed. They didn't know that they were going to draft a defensive tackle in the first round when they signed. You're playing for your job too. So there's a lot going on, and you get the best running back in between the tackles in the league right out the gate. That's definitely an X factor right there. Third's a stretch, but it's my list, so who cares? My third X factor in this game, and I don't think it's an X factor necessarily winning this game. I think it's an X factor not just this week, but throughout the remainder, or I'd say the first half of the season. Jimmy Graham and Michael Thomas. And why I say that is because both of them missed a year of football, essentially. What is left in the tank out of the 2 of them? That's been the biggest what if. That's been the biggest mystery, at least for Michael Thomas for the last couple of years. For Jimmy Graham, that's been the biggest mystery throughout camp, and then obviously everything that happened. But he's looked good. He's had moments where you go, wow, Jimmy Graham still is in there somewhere. Mike Thomas has been week 1 last year against Atlanta. I think everybody was going, wow, he's still there. He's still got it.
Mm-hmm.
We're another year removed from that. So my X factor would be, can you generate enough out of those guys? That is it really an X factor in winning the football game? No, not necessarily. But I just say, in general, generating production out of guys that missed last year. And that's my list.
Those are good ones. I'm just going to go 2, one on each side of the ball. Mainly, we talked about we talked about the trench warfare. On each side. Obviously, eyes are going to be on the quarterbacks. Jamal Williams, Derrick Henry. They've each got to play key roles for their respective teams. But I'm looking at the New Orleans secondary. And it's not that the Tennessee passing attack scares me. It does not. And it probably doesn't scare many NFL defenses either. I know they added DeAndre Hopkins. And Tannehill can be a serviceable quarterback, if he gets on a roll. But other than DeAndre, you have Treylon Burke, still a highly unproven commodity. You have a good young tight end in Chick Okonkwo, and he could present a matchup problem. But again, you don't want Tennessee's passing attack to get on a roll. And I'm very interested to see how Dennis Allen and new defensive coordinator Joe Woods use their defensive backs this game, because we all know that Dennis Allen prefers in most situations to run with 2 linebackers, Demario Davis, Pete Werner, and use an extra defensive back. Is he going to do that against the Titans team that wants to run the ball 30 plus times? Maybe not. If he does, that extra defensive back better play very, very well in run support, which we know that the Saints secondary typically does. So how are the defensive backs going to be used? And are they going to create turnovers, which is the one complaint that you could have about this unit from a year ago, is that only there was only one team that forced fewer turnovers than what the New Orleans Saints did. I expect that number to change drastically, and for the Saints to win this particular game, it might have to. Again, you don't expect Ryan Tannehill to throw the ball very much unless the Saints get up on him by a couple of scores, which is a key strategy in and of itself. But if that happens, you're going to have to prevent Tannehill and that passing attack from gaining any kind of confidence. And for that to happen, we believe that the Saints have the pieces to rush the passer. It's now on the defensive backs to prevent any breakdowns, B, force turnovers, and C, be solid in run support and prevent Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears from getting any extra yardage if they hit that defense's second level. Offensively, I like your Jimmy Graham X factor, but my main X factor is Michael Thomas. And that's no disrespect to Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. Most of us expect big years from those guys. The tight end position, Graham, Jawan Johnson, Foster Moreau. I think that'll be a matchup issue for defenses all year long. But Michael Thomas, if healthy, he brings a completely different element to this offense. He is, as we saw in just 3 games last year before he went out again. He might not be 2019 Michael Thomas. That guy might be long gone in the wind. But he doesn't have to be for this offense. What he needs to be, even in the 3-game stretch that we saw last year, if we get that Michael Thomas, then that does wonders for this offense. Because as a defense, you have to respect that in those intermediate zones, which opens up opportunities for your tight ends, opens up opportunities for your backs coming out of the backfield, and most importantly, opens up the deeper shots for Olave and Rashid Shaheed. So, Michael Thomas, both in this game and long term, I think is an underrated key for New Orleans, for the New Orleans Saints offense.
Absolutely. I think that, we've talked about receivers a whole lot this summer, Bob, more than we probably wanted to. But one of the receivers that made the team, your favorite guy, Traquan, don't know his status for this week. Right, you take Michael Thomas away, and you take Traquan Smith away, and as much as I like Keith Kirkwood, I don't know if I trust. Do I trust Keith Kirkwood to be the number 3 receiver, and in all actuality, really be like the number 2 receiver? Because Shaheed's not going to be a number 2 receiver. I'm not saying he doesn't have the capabilities to do that. I think he'd be more versatile, and his skill set would be used better as a slot receiver. Because of his size, his speed, and how well he runs routes. All I'm saying is you're an injury away from being right back to where you were in the last couple of years at the receiver position, where you're going, you can play receiver today. One name we didn't mention on X Factors. I did a disservice not mentioning it, so I'm gonna write a 4th one. Taysom Hill. I think it's a guy who has not got a whole lot of love this summer, not just from us, but from just Saints media in general.
Yeah.
Because the joke has always been, what? The joke has been, what is Taysom Hill? I don't know. I don't think the Saints know. Maybe Taysom Hill doesn't know. But especially how he was used at the end of last year, or at least the back half of last year. That's how he should be used, as a guy who gets 9 touches a game, 10 touches a game. And it doesn't matter how, whether he's running the ball, catches the ball, or he throws a pass, 2 passes. You can make any scenario up you want. You want to let him throw the ball twice, and then he gets 6 carries, so that's 8, and then he catches a pass, that's 9. Boom. Let him do whatever. But you have a Titans team that's already going to slow the game down. Well, if you want to counter that and slow the game down, and you don't really know if you're going to have a running back outside of Jamal Williams at this point, who's your second running back? Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
Keep it as short and simple and sweet and to the point as that. Because with about 9 minutes left, Bob, I want to bring back a game we haven't played in a while. That's Dot or Drop.
Man, we are the perfect complement to each other, because I was actually just going to hit you with a Dot or Drop anyway, so it is perfect.
It means we've been working together way too long. We can finish each other's sentences and think each other's thoughts. Oh man, we're gonna be in trouble when you're down here too.
Yeah,
because Lauren and Katie, they're gonna go nuts because we're not gonna shut up, are we? Anyway, Dot or Drop. Right out the gate, the hardest one of all. Dot or Drop. The Saints win the season opener.
Dot. I'm not impressed with this Titans team. In my season predictions, which I did publish on the Saints News Network a couple of days ago, shameless plug. I do have the Titans finishing second in the AFC South. But that's only because I believe that division from top to bottom is the worst in football. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to run away with it. I think the Titans will finish second, but they'll do so with a losing record. I see an unremarkable team, but I also acknowledge that this is a team that you still have to strap up your chin strap when you come to play them, because they'll beat you up. So the Saints are going to have to avoid making mistakes. I think the goal should be to come out very aggressively on offense to get up a couple scores and put pressure on Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry to match them score for score. And I like that matchup for the New Orleans defense. So yeah, I'm going to dot this. And I'm going to say the Saints, take a relatively low scoring game, but one that they'll be in control of. I'm going to go 23-13.
Okay. I guess I'll answer it back too. I've already kind of hinted that I think the Saints are going to score at least 24 in this game. I'm going to stick right there. We're in the same. We're close. I think it's going to be a 24-17 ball game in favor of New Orleans. I'll even go a step further. 24. I see 3 passing touchdowns for Derek Carr. And Groupie's going to hit a key field goal going into halftime to extend the Saints' lead.
Nice.
So wishing big things for the young kid. DJ throws up here. I hope we win because it'll be a good birthday present. Who dat? DJ, happy early birthday.
Happy early birthday
to you or for you. I don't have to worry about that with a July birthday. I just have the Mets disappoint me every year.
Daughter drop for you. First of all, I agree with you. The Taysom Hill, will be the secondary rushing threat to Jamal Williams in this game.
Has to be.
But you look at it strategically. It doesn't look like Kendrick Miller is going to play. I'll rephrase that. At this point in the week, I would be surprised if Kendrick Miller suits up. So on the practice squad, you expect probably a couple elevations at running back, an undrafted rookie in Jordan Mims, and an experienced guy in Tony Jones Jr. Not only an NFL veteran, but a guy that knows your system. At receiver, you already mentioned a potential problem. First of all, Traquan Smith is a walking problem. When he bothers to walk. Tell me I'm wrong. Anyway, it's highly unlikely that he plays. And even when he does, how can you tell? That's 2 in a row. I like
You're on
me.
a roll today.
So again, same kind of situation. I mean, Thomas, Olave, Shaheed, they're going to be your top 3. For your 4th option, you either have Keith Kirkwood, not only an NFL veteran, guy that knows your system, or an impressive rookie in A.T. Perry. So running back, wide receiver, you have the same set of circumstances, dot or drop, or experience or youth. What do the Saints go with? What does Dennis Allen go with in this game?
Well, because you said it's Dennis Allen and not Brendan Boylan, the answer is experience. I'm going to take the guys that know my system. I'm going to know the guys that have been here and done it before. Wouldn't be surprised if Tony Jones gets a call up from the practice squad week 1, especially if you're going to be out with Kendrick Miller. That's a guy that knows your system. That's a guy who just 2 years ago, week 1, had a really good outing against Green Bay and can provide some relief. You're not going to expect Tony Jones to come in there and run the ball, 8 times by any means, but he's certainly a guy that could be a breath of fresh air, especially depending on how they want to use Taysom Hill, which is always a question. So ultimately, this team, when they make their elevations, it's not going to be, let's try something different and let's be youthful. It's literally going to be, all right, they're going to walk into the room. And I'm just creating a hypothetical situation, but there's going to be all the practice squad guys in one room, and Dennis Allen's going to walk in. He's going to be like, all right, guys, here's a pen, here's some paper. write down how many career NFL snaps you have, and I'll be back. And he'll count them up, and he'll go, "Oh, all right, you have the most career NFL snaps, or you have the most snaps as a New Orleans Saint." So that's how it's gonna go, and that's how it's gonna go. Honestly, that's gonna be my answer to any roster related question until I'm proven otherwise. Because it wasn't just DA, it was Sean too. Like it was and Sean a little bit less than Dennis, but it was very much when the Saints had injuries, what happened? It was always, let's bring in a familiar face. And it didn't matter the position, it didn't matter how many years they'd been out of the system. Like Tavares Cadet came back a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying anything about his level of play one way or another. But that's a perfect example. I mean, like Tavares Cadet was off the roster for like 3 years. Tavares knows the system. So you sure? I forget a lot of things in 3 years. But nonetheless. All right, last dot or drop to you is going to be dot or drop Derek Carr's first touchdown pass as a Saint goes to a position other than receiver.
Dot, because this is the New Orleans Saints.
Right.
Double dot, because Lauren has Chris Olave. I have Michael Thomas, Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara on my fantasy teams. They're all on my bench. I picked them up late in the draft because I couldn't believe they were still there in like the 10th round, so I had to. This is the New Orleans Saints. So, dot. Derek Carr's first touchdown pass as a Saint will probably go to Adam Prentice. It wouldn't shock me if it were Jimmy Graham, but it won't be to a wide receiver.
You're going to lock that one in?
I'll lock that one in, yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I get it. I understand why you do it. All right, give me your last one.
Dot or drop? Zach Bond plays.
This is good. Just pause. This is bound to be great. All right, go ahead.
Zach Bond plays the most defensive snaps that he has in his NFL career, because they are facing Derrick Henry. And you actually already answered this question because it's roster related. Because they're facing Derrick Henry, Zach Bond, will get the most defensive NFL snaps of his NFL career.
God, why do you do this to me, Bob? Why? I'm actually going to drop it because of two reasons. One, one, Tyrann Mathieu. Two, Lonnie Johnson. Right? Lonnie Johnson was brought in to be this hybrid type of DB, similar to the roles of Malcolm Jenkins, PJ Williams. You could even go as far back as Roman Harper. Right? Somewhere in that. I'm a tweener. I don't quite fit in one position. Because of that, Saints are going to feel comfortable running their typical two linebacker sets and having one of those safeties creep into the box, whether it be Tyrann Mathieu or whether it be Lonnie Johnson, and the other one being able to play back. To me, that's what makes the most sense. But we'll see what Dennis Allen thinks. I'm going to say drop that. The Saints are gonna roll with the extra DB and see what happens. DJ's kind of response to that: dot or drop, Saints stop Derrick Henry. Drop. I don't think you ever stop him. I think you contain him.
Yeah, and that's well put. If you hold Derrick Henry to under 60 yards, you're probably going to win that football game, probably by a couple of scores. If you hold Derrick Henry below 90 or below, I still like your chances. Again, it's no secret what this Tennessee team wants to do, what this Tennessee team needs to do. Yeah, and the onus is on the New Orleans Saints to stop it. Yeah, I like their chances on paper. But again, this is a and this is one of the reasons why I like their chances on paper. This is a run defense. The returning Saints defensive players, and you could hear it in Cam Jordan's voice. They have a chip on their shoulder. They're pissed at how poorly they played against the run. And you could kind of see that play out in the preseason, especially those first two games. With the top units. They looked sharp. They looked aggressive. Now what worries me, is again the lack of reps. Could you possibly wear down late into the fourth quarter? That's where it's on the Saints offense. Either A, to get a couple scores up, or to B, maintain your own balanced attack, to keep the time of possession in your favor, which, by the way, we know Dennis Allen wants to do anyway.
And there you have it, folks. Bob, another successful off-season of the Bayou Blitz. First for me, second for I guess we came in like halfway through the off-season last year, so first full off-season with the Bayou Blitz together. 7 or 8 off-seasons together covering the Saints, something like that. Something. Who knows at this point? I don't. All the years seem to lump together. But nonetheless, another successful offseason. We have real football this weekend. Why don't you tell the people, one, where they can follow you and your work as we continue to inch closer to Sunday, but two, where people can follow us moving forward, probably not for week 1, but certainly for week 2 of the season. Where can people check out some more B&B?
Well, first of all, folks, you can follow me individually, Bob Rose on Facebook, at Bobby R 2613 on Twitter. I post all of my articles through the Saints News Network, not only on my personal pages, but also the Saints News Network, at Saints News on Twitter, or the SI.com team site. I released my first Saints Titans preview earlier today, the Saints run defense versus the Titans rushing attack. So check that one out. I'll continue to break down different aspects of the upcoming game through the remainder of the week, including one X factor for the game, since someone isn't going to be around to do that anymore.
Me?
I just said someone.
Okay, whatever.
If you it's not my fault you got the guilty conscience. Where you can also follow Brendan and I. Go download. If you have iPhone technology, you can already do it. If you have Android technology, keep checking over the next couple days, because that's what I have to do. Because they haven't officially rolled it out on Google Play yet. But download the PSF app. Pro sports fans. Brendan Boylan and I will be 2 of your New Orleans Saints media casters on that site. And coming along with that, we will be doing a Friday evening preview, for the upcoming week's game. We will be doing a pregame show for for any Sunday games that they play, and we will be doing a post-game show for any Sundays that they play too. Like Brendan said, we're not going to be able to do it in week 1. There's still, we're still working out a couple of bugs on our end. We're waiting for them to get, the Android, the app downloaded for Android for me, on their end. So those of you that are used to seeing us in pregame show on the Saints News Network, we're still going to be doing that just over on the PSF app. And like Brendan said, probably not for week 1. But we'll keep you updated on that, not only via this show, but also obviously on our personal pages too. Please download that PSF app. Look for us. Our profiles are already on there. We just don't have any activity yet.
That's right. That's right. For myself, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BT Boylan. Have some exciting stuff in the works, per usual, with the production network. New logo coming in too. Really excited.
Ooh, nice.
That. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to refresh some things. I've had that logo done for a long time. The first logo always holds a special place in my heart, though, because that was the one that jumped us off the ground. First one to be on a big screen, so that was exciting too. So that was all good and fine. To echo Bob as well, with the PSF app, really easy. I'll show you guys right now. PSF on your phone pops up just like that. You're going to hit the My Chats button and go to Saints fans. You can kind of see it up there. And it's going to take you into this chat room. Bob and I are going to go live in that chat room on game days and throughout the week, bringing some breaking news, maybe, a couple dot or drop segments. It's going to be a place where you can sit and, every day really just be able to go scroll, see what other people are saying, see what Bob and I have posted. If you don't catch it live, you just go to the archives, and it might only be a 10-minute thing, but it's be Bob and I talking about, Jake Haener is a great example.
Yeah.
Maybe you're sitting at work and you get home and you come back, you open the app, you're like, what do you mean? What happened? And then immediately you can click the archive, and it's like turning on the TV and there being a segment on, let's say, Sports Center, but every segment's about the Saints. So go ahead, download the app. You can follow us individually, and you can also just go to that Saints fans chat room and get everything that you need. We're really excited about that. Yeah. Bob, I'm excited. New football season. Certainly some high expectations on some people's end. And like I said, before you know it, you're going to be here. We're going to be rocking and rolling. We're going to be meeting some of you guys, a couple of you in particular, deliver some footballs to you. And I still have this third one. So what I'm thinking is, if you're coming to the game, we're going to do a little Where's Waldo? And Bob and I are going to pop up at a restaurant or a bar or somewhere in Charlotte. We're going to post a picture of where we are, and the first person to come find us gets to keep the football. I think that's fun. So that's what we're going to do. We hope to see a lot of you guys in Charlotte, but in the meantime, Saints, Titans, week 1, brand new season underway, and we want to just personally thank each and every one of you for hanging out week in and week out this offseason, week in and week out throughout the season, just hanging out with us while we talk some Saints football. We wouldn't be here doing what we do if it weren't for you. So with that said, until next Wednesday, hope you guys find some peace, spread love, practice positivity, enjoy Saints kickoff on Sunday. We'll see you for another episode of the Bayou Blitz podcast. Enjoy.